Writer's block is inevitable and it takes many forms, so how do we overcome it? Whether you're mid-project and lost for where to go next, ready to start a new project, but can't decide the path, or simply out of ideas. Hi, hello, welcome in. I'm Jerica and I'm an editor, writer, and all-around content creator. And today we're talking about the beast better known as writer's block or creative block, because it's not just writers who encounter this so-called phenomenon. All creatives, and I could argue all striving people, contend with this monster. Athletes get the yips, entrepreneurs struggle to find the next big thing, and creatives lose their muse. Creative block is inevitable, so don't panic. Whether you define your inability to write by a lack of motivation and inspiration, burnout caused by outside forces, or fear and doubt caused by your inner critic, or maybe perhaps some outer critics, we can find a way to the other side to overcome your writer's block. Today I have 12 ways to fight back against your writer's block, neatly categorized into 5 types to kind of help guide you based on where you think your writer's block is coming from. Some of these are best for getting out of your head, others will help spark inspiration, and some are simply ways to face the threat head-on. Some are quick and may get you back into the groove quite quickly, while others are a little slower and more reflective and may help more in the long run. Depending on your prognosis, some will work better than others, so try a couple of different things out and let me know how it goes. Take a break. Just like between writing and editing, a break can give us the space to see things a little more clearly. Get away from your writing. Take a step back and think about anything else. This break may be a few hours, a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But the important part is to leave it alone. While you're away from your project, not only will your desire to go back to it grow, your mind will be working on figuring out this problem in the background, whether it's an actual plot problem or something a little bit more mental or emotional. It is wild the things our brains do when we're not watching them. So try sleeping on it. Assess your feelings about your project in the morning and go from there. Maybe you'll be ready to hop right back into it, and maybe you'll need a longer break. But don't just take a break. Consider some of the activities I am going to propose in the rest of the video. Get the blood pumping. One of the first things I suggest when you get away from your writing, other than sleeping on it, is to get your blood pumping. Go for a walk, do some yoga, have a solo dance party, drop down, give me 10, do a couple squats. Really, it doesn't matter. And if those things are inaccessible to you, there's still ways to get your blood pumping. Consider chair-based workouts lying down, or energizing breathing techniques. You could also consider watching some videos or listening to some music that kind of amps up your emotions. Bringing our focus to our body and letting our mind rest can be super helpful in battling writer's block. I highly recommend getting a little woo-woo with this and seek mindfulness in your movements. By focusing on your breathing and your heartbeat and the way that your body feels as you move it, your mind can be occupied by something other than your writing and other than your problem with writing. Seek other art. Other art can prove as distraction and or inspiration. Consume art. There are 2 main ways to think about consuming art when you're trying to beat writer's block. The first is inspiration. For this, you're going to want to aim for art that is similar and adjacent to the thing that you're working on, but maybe best that it's actually not writing, though reading stuff can also be helpful. But if you can seek like visual art or music or movies that are kind of like the same genre, the same vibe, it may push your brain into a different enough space that new kind of ideas and excitement about the content will come. The other is for distraction, and for this, you're going to want to do the opposite of that. You want to find something that is so far removed from the project that you're currently working on that hopefully it won't be reminded of that project while you're consuming it. As far as what art to consume, you can consider reading a book, but like I said, it might be better to get away from written words. And so consider also watching a film, going to a play, listening to music, visiting an art gallery. As you can see, this obviously lines up really well with getting away from your writing. And this doesn't have to be expensive. I realize going to the movies or going to a play or going to a concert, buying new books, things like that can be a financial strain, but there are more cost-effective ways to do this. So hit up your local library. You can go to a used bookstore instead of buying new. If you have streaming services, obviously that makes movies and TV shows a little easier, but you can always go to YouTube for something like that. There's lots of free places or low-cost places to listen to music. Spotify has free options. YouTube has free options. You can try to find live music at like a local bar that doesn't have a cover. Or visual art, you can try scrolling through Pinterest or Google, or a lot of art galleries have like places that you can scroll through on there. Same with museums. Museums is another great resource, and I know in my city certain nights have free hours, so definitely check that out local to you. There are so many ways to consume art to inspire or distract you and get you out of your own way. The other way to seek new art is to work on something else. Seek your other art. Now, of course, you can work on another writing project, but that may not be far enough away from your project to get that distance. So hopefully you have another creative pursuit, or maybe it's time to pick up a new one. And this can really be anything. Maybe you compose or just play music or sing. Maybe you're a painter, a sculptor, maybe you crochet or knit or embroider. Basically anything that uses the creative side of your brain that is removed enough from your writing that, again, you're getting that distance and distraction, and maybe even some weird inspiration. It's possible that your brain just needs to act in some creative way to unblock itself from its current creative block. This novelty can kind of open a new window to your creative pool, I guess. Right, anyway, sometimes banging your head against the wall is the only way forward. And the first piece of that is to say poo-poo to perfection. Often something holding us back is the need to put the perfect or the right words down on the page. But we have to remember that most of the writing and publishing process is editing and revising. The whole point of editing and editors is that the first and maybe third, maybe 10th draft isn't perfect. So get out of your head, get the story on the page, you can make it pretty later. This is about as bang your head against the desk as it gets, but sometimes just sitting in front of the blank page works. Boredom breeds creativity. Writing prompts. If your struggle is a lack of idea generation, writing prompts can do a lot to kind of get the juices flowing. There are options that will get you to think about your current work in progress, so things like 10 questions to ask your main character or something like that. But you can also just try writing prompts that have nothing to do with it. You can try to use those writing prompts to spark something in your project, or just go completely off the book. For seeking your own art, this is a great way to keep writing, but be removed from your project. So where do you get these prompts? Well, you can do a quick little Google search or a search on something like Pinterest, but I have stashed some links for you down in the description, or you can follow along with a write-along, body doubling, co-working video like this one. Writing sprints. These can be used in conjunction with the aforementioned writing prompts, or you can just use it to bang your head against the desk on your current project. Writing sprints are simply a timer, and you write. The best way I've found to use these to really get words on the page is to choose a relatively short sprint time, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, and then do that a couple of times and try to beat your previous word goal. Sometimes this pressure can force us to write, especially if we are kind of competitive in nature. But this but this pressure can also force you just to write without thinking, because sometimes the overthinking is the reason we're not getting any words on the page. And again, if body doubling, co-working, that sort of vibe is something that helps you, there are communities that run writing sprints within them, and if there's enough interest, I'd be happy to start running these in my Discord, so definitely let me know if that's something you're interested in. Talk it out. Figure out what's stopping you from writing. Talk to another writer or simply a caring friend. Sometimes we need to talk to somebody to get through the block. This could mean talking out the plot points that are stumping you, or it could mean talking about the more emotional blocks that are stopping you from writing, talking about that doubt, the way that you feel about your inner critic, what that inner critic is saying. Despite feeling like a solo plight, writers are a community, and I think we should take advantage of that. Journal about what you're stuck on and why. Not feeling up to discussing your project or your innermost feelings with a friend, talk to yourself or your muse with journaling instead. Something is blocking you from writing, and you need to figure out what it is. This writing is truly for your eyes only, so make it messy. Forgo punctuation. It really doesn't matter. We're thinking stream of consciousness here. We're just dumping our brain onto the page. You simply want to have an honest conversation with yourself about why you're having such a hard time writing. Sometimes we don't even know what the obstacle is. We just know that when we sit down, no words show up on the page. And sometimes talking it out is the best way to figure out what the problem is. And this doesn't have to be about your mental state, though it might need to be. It can also work for the plot bunny issue. Something that I find really helpful, and I often use this as an outlining thing, but I use it in between as well, is to just write down a bunch of questions that my plot needs to answer, or questions about, like, when we come to a fork in the road in the plot, which way do we need to go, and what does that mean for the writing? Writing it down kind of helps me visualize that to the point where sometimes I make it like a decision tree or a mind map or something like that, which helps kind of make the ideas tangible, if that makes sense, rather than just floating around in my head. But the important part is that the organization doesn't need to look good, whereas when I sit down to outline, I feel like it needs to look pretty for some reason. It kind of takes the pressure out of it to do it this way. Why? To do it this way. The rubber ducky. In coding, there's this practice of talking out loud to a rubber ducky, kind of working through your code, because talking out loud switches on a different part of your brain and sometimes points out where the problem is. We give this advice for editing all of the time to kind of like see what our words sound like, so then we know what they sound like when they're read, kind of thing. But it works really well for figuring out issues too. This kind of puts the talking to a friend and journaling together, because you're still like speaking out loud, but nobody else has to hear you. So grab a figurine of some sort. It could be the classic rubber ducky, it could be a fancy rubber ducky. Maybe you have a pet rock or a troll or a shoulder buddy or a stuffed animal. Any of these things will help. Grab it, talk to it out loud, because there is something to be said about activating this new language center of your brain. I'm sure there's some fun science behind it, which maybe I'll do a deep dive on at some point. But for now, just try it out. And really, one of the biggest things, stop giving it power. Whether you feel this way or not, you are in control here. Rename and rethink it. It's inevitable that you're going to get stuck at some point. Think of writer's block as more of an obstacle overcome than a storm or illness to wait through. Like most of your sentences, this should be active. You should be working to get around, over, under, or through writer's block rather than waiting for the storm to pass. If you look at it as a wall, grab a hammer and chisel and knock it down. Look at it as a river. Knock down some trees, grab some vines, and make yourself a raft. Look at it as a mountain. Grab a bag, pack some snacks, grab some rope and pittance and the proper shoes, and get climbing. The point is that we have tools in our toolbox to get through this obstacle. We shouldn't just try to wait it out, because really writer's block is a part of us. If your writer's block is more based in that inner critic, rename it. Call it some name that brings an image of a person you hate for some reason. And tell them to just get out. We're not listening to you today, Janice. Take your funny laugh somewhere else. Just sit with it. Keep your writing appointment with yourself, even if you don't write. Don't let your creative block create a domino effect by stopping your routine just because you feel like you can't write. Because once that routine's broken, it's going to be even harder to get back into it. So keep scheduling writing time. Now, if your writer's block is going on for a little while and banging your head against the keyboard isn't working, try some of these other techniques. Try using this time to create other art, or use it for talking it out with your beanie baby. Or your cat. A cat's a great option too. It doesn't have to be an inanimate object. Just keep coming back, be persistent. Eventually you will be able to write again. Of course, just sitting, I don't recommend being the only thing you're doing to get over your writer's block, but I think that was already made pretty clear. In conclusion, creative blocks are inevitable. If writing and finishing was easy, everybody would be published. Finding motivation and inspiration can certainly be a part of this process, but remember that not every part of writing, editing, and publishing is going to be fun or easy. Sometimes there are parts of a project that you kind of just have to slog through. It's kind of just part of the job. Writer's block is an obstacle, not a malady, or some being that sits on your shoulder. You can, should, and kind of have to take action to break through. Consider taking some time to really focus on what the problem actually is, rather than thinking about it as some vague, ethereal ennui. When you figure out if it really is a mental, emotional, or physical problem, you'll have a much better chance of choosing the right techniques to get back on your way. Every person and instance of writer's block is going to be different. There is no one tried and true answer, even for an individual. You will need to fill your toolbox with multiple techniques to try. And usually one thing won't get you out of it. Very often we need to get the blood pumping, find some new inspiration, and remember that first drafts aren't perfect. I believe in you even if you don't believe in yourself right now. You will write again. You just need a little time. If you have ways to get out of a writing slump that weren't mentioned here, please let us know down in the comments. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and everyone here could use all the help and tools they can get. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. I had a blast. Catch you next time. Bye. Hi, hello, welcome in. I'm Jerica, and I'm an editor, writer, and all-around. Oh, I don't know where you thought you were jumping to there, guy. Jeebus crust. I'm gonna redo that because I didn't follow my script at all.